Hi everybody, it's Rich. Welcome to Intro to Web Programming. Just want to give you a little overview of sort of where we're going with the course. So really what we want to do is we want to start looking at the web differently. Up till now, most of you are probably online every day, and we want to start to see the web in a different way. So rather than thinking about what does the internet look like to a person who's using it, I want you to start thinking about what's happening under the hood. How is the web and all the things that we do online every day, how are those things put together? For example, some of you have been here, probably most of you, even if you've never been here, it's famous enough that you recognize where this is. So you've probably seen this, the Golden Gate Bridge, an amazing site. Now, this is what it looks like when you, to the average person. However, if you were one of these people, if you were an engineer, not only would you see the orange, the beauty over the water, you'd probably be seeing it in a different way. And you can look at the Golden Gate Bridge and you can also see it from something like this. You're thinking about how is this bridge put together, what's the structure, what's the engineering, what's the logic, and how all of this was put together. So what we want to do when we start using the web is I want you to think not only how things work from an end user point of view, but also how are things put together. And we're going to spend a lot of time in this course kind of deconstructing websites and then sort of putting the pieces back together. So just to give you another few examples, average person might see a race car, but to a mechanic like this guy, he's going to think about what's happening literally under the hood. What does that engine look like that allows that car to go at the speeds, make the turns it does? We might flip on our TV and watch the Olympics and see a great athlete. But if we were an athletic therapist or a trainer, we're also seeing, again, how do we have to train that athlete to perform? What's really happening? How are all the muscles working together so that he can perform the way that he or she does? Many of you see this, probably a lot of you, this is the first thing you look at every day. So we see a Facebook news feed, but if we're a web developer, we're also wanting to think about what's the code, what's the structure, what's the architecture happening behind this. Okay, how is this all put together at the end of the day? Okay. So really what we do, this diagram is a pretty good summary of pretty much most of the things we'll be doing in the course. We're looking at how does an end user, so we've got the client at the top left. Could be any internet-enabled device. Might be a computer, might be a smartphone, might be a tablet. How do they make requests for data over the internet, and where does that information come from? How do we use a programming language like PHP? It doesn't have to be PHP, but PHP will be the language we use in our course. How do we use that language to let the user interact with an application, get the data they want? I do have some good news for you in this regard. All of these technologies that you're going to be learning in the class, there's a lot of demand out there for the skills that we have, and even better, a lot of people, they really think this stuff is magic, when at the end of the day, putting a web application together is really all just about some basic programming logic and knitting together some different technologies, HTML, PHP, CSS, and some SQL and database work. So we should probably talk about one of the fundamental terms. We're going to talk a lot about data. The idea of data isn't meant to scare you. Really, data is, well, let's look at some examples. If we look at Facebook, for example, Facebook data would be things that we see every day. So all the information we log on to Facebook to see, the profiles, the posts, the photos, the likes, all of these things would be stored in the Facebook database. And when we click on a link, we want to view someone's profile, we want to view our news feed, what we're really looking at is a small subset of the data, either related to something we're interested in or someone that we know on Facebook. Let's take a look from the e-commerce world. Amazon, probably the world's biggest and kind of the pioneer of e-commerce. We think about what kinds of things do we go on Amazon to see? Well, primarily products, but also in order to see those products, we might browse through a list of categories. We might want to see product images. We might want reviews. That's the information that we want as the end user. And what does Amazon want from us? It's really not just is not just a one-way communication, it's actually two-way. Amazon shows us the data in their database. They let us choose, and ultimately what they want us to do is to create additional data. They want us to sign up as a customer, which would be letting us create a customer record in their database. They want us to order products, hopefully many times, so they want us to create many orders in their database, and they also would track things like shipping addresses for us. This is usually the first site I go to every day. Roll over out of bed, grab my smartphone, and browse the paper. I might read it online while I'm having my breakfast. If we think about the kind of data that's here, most of it is provided to us by the newspaper. So I've got articles, I can look at different categories. I might click on a particular writer that I enjoy reading their columns. I might look at photos, watch video, but again, also there can be a two-way communication where I can create comments or I can create an account on the website. Right? So I like to kind of think of how this whole process works. It's really not all that different than going out with your friends the end of the week to go out for drinks. Okay? Let's talk about that a little more. In either case, in order for us to get what we want, there's really a number of pieces that are kind of working together in order, at the end of the day, in our pub, for us to get our drinks around a table with our friends, and if we're requesting information from a website, in order for us to be able to see all the information we want. And it really doesn't matter what that information is. The process is going to be work the same way. It doesn't matter if we're looking at our Facebook news feed, or we're shopping for products on Amazon, or we want to read the news on Globe and Mail. Okay. So in both cases, we've got our pub on the left, we've got our web application on the right. There's something that we want. So in our pub, we go in with friends, we want drinks. In our web application, there's some data that particular website has that we're interested in looking at. So it might be something as simple as we want to see, our news feed first thing in the morning. However, in both cases, we have no direct way to get at what we want. We can't go into the pub and walk behind the bar and help ourselves. And just like we can't load up Facebook's website and automatically go into their database and find any particular data we want. So we don't really have this kind of direct access. So how does this work? Well, in the pub, really we've got kind of a wall. There's physically a bar that we're not allowed to go behind, and all the drinks kind of sit behind the bar. And all of the data we've been talking about, really in a web application, it lives in a database. So many of you will be taking a relational database course here, and that course kind of works in tandem with this course because what we want to teach you to do is how to build a web application that interacts with a database, because most of the content that we want to see on in a website, that content is actually living in a database somewhere. So how do we get behind that wall? How do we get the drinks in the bar? How do we get our news feed or our profile list or the particular data we want to see if we don't have direct access? Okay? In both cases, we sort of have this intermediary. So over in the pub, we have our server. Server comes to our table, asks everybody what they want, and basically takes that request. Really, in a web application, it does the same thing. A website presents us with a series of links. For example, we might click a link. We might click our newsfeed link in Facebook, and that's indicating to the server what page it should load and what request. Or we might type in a search box and submit that search. So in either case, we've got something, both a web server or a server in a pub, listening for our request to sort of initiate that process of getting us what it is that we want. So now we've transmitted that request, and now we've got our server in the pub or our web server has to know what to do. So it's got a request. Where's it going to go? So is it going to go behind the bar and get the drinks we want? In a web application, we want that request to be transmitted into the database to pull out the information that we're looking for. Okay. So in a pub, our server might have something like an order pad. Hopefully they have an order pad, so they get it. We make sure they get our request right. So they would write down our instructions and take those. In a web application, the technology that we're going to use it a little bit in this course, so the focus of this course is not teaching you SQL. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's a standard language that can be used with almost any type of database to basically issue instructions. So we want to see our news feed, or we want to see the profile page of one of our friends, for example, or a business that we like, or we want to see somebody's photo gallery. In all those cases, we make a request that's generated using the SQL programming language that can go into our database and pull out the information that we're looking for. So if we ask for something that can be found, we ask for a drink that they have behind the bar, or we ask for data that can be found in our database, we're going to get a response returned to us. Okay? So hopefully what we get at the end of the day is we get our server bringing us back our drinks and handing them out, or we might get, we wanted to see a Facebook photo album, we're going to get that list of pictures returned to us. Okay, so in both cases, really we have an entire environment and several actors that work together. In the pub, we have the bar that holds the alcohol, we have a place for people to sit, we've got a menu so we can see what kind of requests are available, we've got servers coming to our table to take our requests, we've got a notepad that allows them to record our instructions, and then they've got the bartender that will take those instructions, fetch the drinks so the server can return them to us. It's really not all that different from any web page we look up. So we have a database holding a bunch of information that people might want to look at. We've got some kind of device that is enabled with internet capability. We use the HTTP protocol so users can make requests to a server. Those servers will issue instructions to the database in SQL to find data. We use server-side scripting to interpret and process those results, and then we send back, and ultimately that data is displayed using HTML tags in our browser. So that's kind of the high level of where we're going with this course, and the big focus at the end of the course is for you to be able to build functional web applications that can interact with the database and do all of these things, handle requests that users want, and let them perform the kind of operations they want with their internet-enabled device.